Recently, I replayed the first Uncharted game, and even though it has its flaws with the sheer amount of shooting galleries in the game, yet one thing I could really appreciate about that game was that it kept things simple yet effective. It delivered a fun linear action adventure experience set in a tropical island setting. And I guess that's one of the reasons why the Uncharted series has become so memorable and some of the best video games out there. They know exactly the type of experience they want to deliver to the players. A short yet fun action-packed adventure. Yet quite a few modern AAA games nowadays have kind of lost the plot. A lot of renowned game franchises are hit by a sort of identity crisis. Of course, since I have liked the Assassin's Creed series for a long time, it's undeniable that it's really one good example of a series that has shed its identity to become an RPG for the sake of mass appeal. But even the opposite is true. When games change up the series for the better, like God of War 2018, taking more of a focus on narrative, whilst keeping the elements that makes God of War God of War. And the other being Resident Evil, by fully going action-packed with Resident Evil 4, sure, it split the fanbase who liked the survival horror aspect of the game, yet it still kept what made most of what makes Resident Evil alive, and what made the series more popular than ever. And they definitely nailed both aspects of Resident Evil with the most recent entry, Requiem. So I can't complain. I understand why series need to evolve and change over time because players will get bored of it, like it was the case for God of War and Resident Evil. Yet what's important is still keeping the core mechanics and identity of the game intact whilst evolving, something which a lot of series that change direction fail to keep in mind, leading to the detriment of the series' identity. There's also the obsession with making everything into an open world nowadays. A report from Econ Market Research suggests that over 60% of titles released in 2024 had open world maps greater than 30 square kilometers, and over 65% of AAA studios now ensure that there are open world elements included in their design philosophy, even for games that weren't originally open world, yet forced to become one because of the growing demand for these type of games. A good example of this was the recent Tomb Raider trilogy, which was a series known for its linear level design traversal and well-thought puzzles. But the recent trilogy goes full-on open world with having mechanics like crafting, collecting loot and side content, something that clearly doesn't benefit the series, which, just like Uncharted, was focused on giving you a linear action-adventure experience. And it's a shame because part of what set Tomb Raider apart from Uncharted was the well-thought-out puzzles and level design, yet the recent trilogy clearly doesn't feel any different from, say, Uncharted or even any other open-world action-adventure game, and it's sad to see it this way. To be fair though, even Uncharted 4 did have non-linear levels with much more open environments, but it didn't have XP points or typical open world stuff in it. It was just to give the player different paths to complete the same objective. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying open world games are wrong, but does every game need to be an open world game now? This obsession with turning everything into an open world game has kind of ruined the genre for me personally, as it's the same copy-paste outdated Ubisoft formula used in most of these. Sure, some of them are a bit more polished and refined like Ghost of Tsushima or Yote, or an RPG like The Witcher 3, yet I miss the time when you just had fun linear style games that didn't take you about 60 fucking hours to beat. And unironically, I spend way more time in those games than I ever would on a 100+ hour game. They had the most memorable and fun moments too, and arguably were far more challenging, yet it added to the fun. Plus, as you grow older, of course you won't have the time to beat games that are longer than the average age of Fortnite players. Which is why I appreciate Capcom with their Resident Evil games. They deliver fun, engaging and short experiences that you can have a blast playing and beat over a weekend. And with their games not being so long, they are actually able to release far more games within a short amount of time. In fact, within the last 5 years, I think Capcom is one of the few AAA studios that have released the most amount of games. Because especially something like Resident Evil isn't pressured to be a 40+ hour game, which is the standard nowadays unfortunately, and part of the reason why game development takes up so much time. This obsession with making games as long and big as possible has really affected how I interact with video games nowadays. Also, before people come at me with the argument that they wouldn't pay $70 for a 15-hour linear game, well, let's be for real. I think it's a bigger waste of money to buy a 60+ hour game and not finishing it than having bought and completely finished a 15-hour game. I know people have different value for money, but if you're getting more of the same but it's stretched out over a 60-hour interval, would you really play it? Because this is a massive problem with modern Ubisoft games. And I don't know about you, but I value games that respect my time. Time is money, as the saying goes, and I clearly don't want to waste mine. I feel this way deeply after beating Assassin's Creed Shadows recently. I just don't have time and energy for this bullshit anymore, man. And of course, there are also great counterexamples of games that are long yet satisfying and engages you throughout its playtime, like Baldur's Gate 3 or Elden Ring. Then of course, the other obsession of the industry now is live service games. Now I don't need to remind you of the colossal failures we've had when game studios decided to go this direction. We had the Avengers game, Suicide Squad and the most infamous Concord. especially with Sony seemingly deciding to invest much more on live service slop than their exclusives, which is part of the reason why this generation has been the least memorable for PlayStation. But why do they keep continuing to make it happen? Well, like it or not, there are clearly games that thrive on this model. Fortnite, for example, still has over 110 million active monthly players and still continues to attract over 30 million. GTA Online is also highly successful from this model. Both have made billions from this, so there's clearly a demand there. Yet it does not work because other studios are trying to copy what worked with those games instead of evolving on it. There's clearly no reason for players to move away from already successful live service games, unless the studios distinguish themselves. And because of trying to chase this model, it's a shame that companies are abandoning what they used to do good. Halo Infinite went this route and pretty much killed a lot of interest in the series that players had, by conforming to what is being done instead of what this series needs, a kick-ass main campaign and a solid multiplayer experience. Suicide Squad kills the Justice League, a pretty cool idea on paper ruined by live service elements that clearly didn't add anything to the game, thus tarnishing Rocksteady's legacy. Not to mention that a lot of studios who were working on these live service games have been shut down by the business suits. So this is clearly also affecting people here, as so much money is invested in these projects that expectations are soaring high, and so is the pressure. These poor devs lost their jobs because of some dumbass decision made by the CEOs. Sure, there have been other successes in the last couple years like Genshin Impact, Helldivers 2, Marvel Rivals, and many more. But these games didn't just copy Fortnite or GTA Online, they took the formula and made it their own, which is what these big companies that don't have any experience with these type of games don't get. Of course, there's also the obvious thing that people keep blabbering on about, AI. Now I'm gonna be honest, whether you like it or not, AI is here to stay and devs will definitely make use of that technology to develop their games. And it's kind of pointless to fight against it, because even the most successful and well-praised games have used some form of generative AI in their games. Now personally, I don't mind if AI is used for very minor details like getting concept ideas or to reuse some insignificant textures in the game to save time, but the problem becomes when AI is used for a huge portion of the game's development, to the point that it's taking away jobs from talented devs and also voice actors, and even making games uglier, like DLSS 5 that pisses over all facial models. Of course, there's also the fact that a lot of these AI data centers use up a huge amount of resources and are also responsible for jacking up the RAM prices, and people have a right to be angry about that. But this AI hype is already starting to die down. Like any trend, big companies will follow it until they realize it's not as profitable as they thought, thus cutting back on jobs and laying off people to compensate. That's clearly gonna be the cycle with AI, and it sucks that the common people gonna have to suffer for this. If games start using too much AI, it really starts making these games look very similar to each other. There's no unique art style or theme in the game, it's just the same Botox gone wrong faces and pre-generated generic environments. Thus video games start to lose their soul altogether. And that to me is the biggest concern out of all of this, and it's especially prevalent today with remakes of original games. With games neglecting what made the original stand out in favor of pretty looking modern graphics, and that's fine. It's just that it makes the games look generic. I already sort of talked about this in another video, you should check it out if you want to. To wrap up this video, I just miss games that devs were genuinely passionate to make. Like you could feel the soul and heart of those games. Something like the intro of Assassin's Creed 2 in the rooftop means infinitely more to me than anything from Shadows. I just wish we get more of these games back. The ones that are not just content but actually made with intention and an artistic vision. Not every game has to be the same. Not every game should be the same because conformity stops creativity. And we need that back, now more than ever, if the current AAA games industry wants to survive and thrive. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, like and subscribe if you did. I really wanted to make one of these commentary style videos, especially after being burnt out so much by just doing Assassin's Creed videos back to back. But I will return to making videos covering games, including and not limited to Assassin's Creed. Considering that Black Flag Resync is coming out soon, I will surely be playing that and doing a video on it, and I have another video planned out for next month. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, I wish you guys have a good day ahead, and I'll see you very soon.